All right, he is the host of the the Callahan Show on Twitter, but the Gerry Callahan Show on Newsmax. You know him from writing for years and years for the Boston Herald, and before that for Sports Illustrated. I forgot actually how to pronounce it, Gerry, because SI is so gone from being the king to so irrelevant these days.
It is true. It is. It's just out of sight, out of mind. No one even thinks about it
And
anymore.
nobody even
sad.
picks up the swimsuit edition because they only have like fat people, trans people, old women. Like,
But
they were ahead of the curve. They were out. They had a trans guy in a bikini 5 years ago before it was trendy. They were way ahead of us.
what are they freaking think? It's so disappointing that like the sports world went so woke. ESPN, Disney, and all these people. It's just so freaking so disappointing. It's like the only good news I've heard in the last like few weeks on the make America what it used to be again is like that Portnoy is in charge of Barstool again. That's like, to me, that's like a tiny glimmer of something good, I guess. Maybe they'll start having co-eds.
I'm not sure how it affects me or
No.
you, but it's a good thing, I guess. I feel like I was one of those last people that subscribed to lots of magazines. I used to subscribe to, I don't know, 5 or 6, and one by one they just turned their back on me. And it was the Sports Illustrated. After 40 years, they had a issue. I wasn't even the trans guy in the swimsuit issue. They had a cover that scolded you if you didn't follow the WNBA. It's the headline was why aren't you watching the WNBA? And the whole story is like, what's wrong with you? And I said, enough of this. It's not for me anymore. I cancel after 40 years. I was reading Runner's World, and they had a cover with a big fat black woman saying, people, why do people not think I'm a runner? And they had a whole story about black women and who run and get ignored or whatever. And then I canceled that. And then Men's Health, I've subscribed for years. Last month, they had a tribute, like a glowing tribute to Jamie Raskin. What a hero he is, standing up to power. And I said, I'm done with that. I am down to Golf Digest. That's all I got now. I used to have a mailbox full of, I used to Esquire and GQ and you name it. And one by one, I just said, these I'm not their audience anymore. They have all gone woke, super liberal. Can you imagine thinking that your audience wants to see a glowing tribute to Jamie Raskin, one of the biggest snakes in Congress, the guy that led the charge against the 2016 election, now calling all these election deniers threats to democracy, just one of the biggest frauds in the world. And they want you to think he's some kind of friggin' hero. That's not for me. If you want to write that, fine, but I'm done with you. And I love to tell them why. I cancel. I want them to ask why, and I tell them why.
Good. That's great. I'm all for that. I guess I get the Wall Street Journal, which is a good editorial page.
Not in print.
Well, not in print. I get nothing in print anymore. Certainly not anything certainly not the Herald. The Herald is done, or the Lowell Sun. And it's certainly nothing that's part of that hedge fund. They're just.
But we give money to the Wall Street Journal and we give money to National Review, and that's like it. That's the only.
You mean Gerry Callahan? Oh, you're not on Locals anymore.
No, we are. Well, we had been paying Gerry on Locals. I think we still do.
Well, there you go. There you go. So that's that. So Gerry, I wanted to give you condolences. Speaking of sports, the U.S. women's soccer team has unfortunately been eliminated from contention. And what was your emotion when you found that Megan Rapinoe was weeping after that match?
It was heartbreak. It was sad enough that they lost, but poor Megan had to be the GOAT. I mean, what a way to go out. I don't think I've ever seen a team that represented America that had more Americans rooting against it, including former women's soccer teams in the past. This one, because she was the leader, because she was so obnoxious, because they continued to sit and bitch about this country. I think people were thrilled to see them lose, and it couldn't have happened to a better woman to see Megan choke. Megan didn't belong on the team. She wasn't good anymore, and that's why she was on the bench a lot. And she was in the shootout, and she on the penalty kicks, and she just airmailed one that she's supposed to score easily on that. She choked, they lost, and everyone just enjoyed the hell out of it.
I did.
I usually root for the U.S. I always root for the U.S. I just don't root for people who don't like the U.S. I can't do that. The hell with them. it was glorious. Plus, we all got the chance to say we don't really like soccer anymore. You know, when they win, you have to pretend you like soccer.
Yeah, that shot sucked, Gerry. I am
know.
not a jock, but that shot just blew. I can't believe. I mean, what an embarrassment. That was fantastic.
Well, and I like the shaming from people who don't even like the country in the first place, saying like, oh, all these so-called patriots are happy to see the U.S. I'm not obligated to root for the U.S. women's national team. I'm not obligated to watch any soccer at all. It's a free country. You know, they're the ones who are choosing to be on the U.S. national team and trash the U.S. every day. I didn't sign up for anything. I'm not obligated to like them.
You know what? They could be, Alice. They could be heroes. They could be everybody's favorite team. If they stood up for their country, you could be a liberal and even dye your hair purple. But if you went out there and celebrated the country you come from, which is the greatest country in the world, especially for strong women, you know, you're playing other countries where women aren't allowed to, you know, show their faces or wear shorts or maybe, you know, attend a game. They're not allowed to. And that's why there's only like 17 teams in the whole world from women, and there's hundreds for men because many countries don't allow them.
Mm-hmm.
So you play for the U.S. where you not only get the chance to play in the World Cup, but you get equal pay to the men who bring in 10 times more revenue. So you should love this country more than anyone and celebrate this country more than anyone. And you should go out there and say, we're going to export this freedom for women. This is going to be our thing. We're going to shame these other countries that don't have women's rights like we do. And we're going to talk about what a great country we come from. And they do the exact opposite. They talk about whatever, the trans rights or gay rights or something. It's the freest place in the world for trans people, gay people, for lesbians like you. Hell, the big star, the one making all the money, getting all the attention, she's an old lesbian with a wife.
Mm-hmm.
She comes from this country. Couldn't do that. There's, as Rick Grenell always points out, there's 60 countries where it's illegal to be gay. There's 9 countries where they execute gay people. And she goes in front of those countries and talks about all the troubles in the United States, all the problems in the United States. It's disgusting. She's disgusting, and it's great to see her lose.
Totally agree. Plus, they're all these soccer players come from towns like Wellesley and Dover and West Hartford. Right. These are always privileged people, just so freaking spoiled. God, and to beg and scratch to get equal pay when they're not earning it on merit. Where the freak is people? Where's pride anymore? I mean, actually, not gay pride, but where is actually pride in yourself where you don't want
dignity?
Dignity, right?
Yeah, they have no dignity. I mean, you think about it. Again, they should be the happiest people in the world. They should love this country more than anything, and they should thank it. I mean, I get to play soccer and make millions, in the case of Megan, millions to play this silly kids game that most of America doesn't give a damn about. She's the luckiest person in the world.
Yep.
They did a tribute to her on ESPN. There's a great divide. People like us, we can't stand the sight of her, but ESPN still loves her, celebrates her. Joe Biden gave her a Medal of Freedom last year. Medal of Freedom for this purple-haired soccer player. But ESPN did a 3-minute tribute to her, and the narrator, this is hard-hitting journalism, the narrator was her wife, Sue Bird.
She's royalty in Connecticut. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But there is with this, and I don't know if it's millennials or whatever, there is a spoiled brat thing where these people like Jamel Hill, who's got no talent, unless I'm missing it, who keeps getting big gigs and complaining about how she's victimized and how this is a racist country. It's like, man, are things so good that we're having to create false?
Yes.
People are so oppressed. Yes. So oppressed. Tom and I were talking about this yesterday on our show about the writer's strike. Billy Porter, the guy who's always wearing a dress at every red carpet premiere and played the fairy godmother in Amazon's new Cinderella, he's complaining that he has a net worth of $5 million, and he's complaining he apparently has to sell his house because he lives paycheck to paycheck because of the writer's strike.
It's rough. And you know what? I think of this all the time. The people that if you're a good liberal, you can do anything and survive. You'll get another job, another gig. Jamel Hill, Bomani Jones, these people they've failed at every medium. They get no ratings. She failed in TV and radio. Bomani Jones has failed in everything, and he got a gig at HBO after his show failed on ESPN a couple of times. and then they bitch about whatever, talk about race. You say, I mean, if you were me or Shattuck, you'd be done. You fail once or twice, you're done. But you turn on MSNBC and there's an actual news show, and the host is Al Sharpton, and the co-host is Mike Barnacle. Wait a second, that guy. These are disgraced people. They have no credibility. This is a world-renowned plagiarist.
Yes,
next to the biggest race hustler, tax cheat, liar in the world, and they're on prime time. They're on Morning Joe. You have these people who've just been absolute disgraces. If they were conservatives, you would never see the light of day again. You'd never hear from them again.
Yes, Jeffrey Toobin brought back to CNN after that. And not only that, but when they brought him in, they had him sit with a female anchor to discuss the incident. What?
You don't get that kind of treatment if you're a conservative. That you're just done. You're done. But if you're Jemele Hill, you just keep getting one after another, getting paid gigs. I mean, there was a story in the New York Times about Bill Simmons. And of course, Bill Simmons, he got intimidated and nervous about him not having enough black people at his company. So the next day he hires Jemele Hill, gives her a podcast. No one listened. She had no listeners. Nobody knew it, but didn't matter. He threw some money at her, said, "You got a podcast? Look, I got a black woman, a crazy liberal black woman. Aren't I enlightened?" Hoping the New York Times wouldn't do that again, hoping he had done what they wanted him to do, and hired one of these angry black people that just deal in grievance. That's all, and race grievance. That's it. That's all they deal. If you're Bomani or Jemele Hill, that's all you got.
But you can
no
never
talent.
win.
Yeah,
you
right.
can never win with trying to satisfy these activist groups that try and pressure you into doing this stuff. It is never enough. And once they know they've got you, once they taste blood because you go out and hire them for consulting, like you've just signed up for a lifetime more of grief from them, because they'll never stop. Your organization is never going to be unproblematic. They'll work right through your organization until there's nothing left of it and you go under.
And it's true. You think you have metrics. You say, look, you have no ratings. You have no viewers to Bomani or to Jemele. It doesn't matter. They say, but you haven't given us a chance yet because I'm black. You're not going to give me a chance. And you're right. You cannot win when you bring someone on like that who that's all they have to offer is more racial grievance.
Yeah. But most of these, even the conservative, Gerry, a conservative news outlet that both you and I worked for, the management got very worried that there were no black editors. And I tell you, Gerry, if a black guy had walked in the Seaport District and we had seen him, we would have dragged him in the building and made him an editor. And really, it was almost that. It's incredible. We were just looking for anybody because they were afraid. The ownership was afraid.
I sat with an editor one time, sports editor at the Herald, great guy, but he was an old school liberal. He was old, from New York. But he was a great editor, and he put together a good sports section. And I sat with him as he went through all these resumes, and he goes, I gotta find a black guy. I have to. And he just saw these great resumes. If they weren't black, he says, I have to. And he ended up hiring a black guy, and he was a great guy, but not a great writer. Mm-hmm. But all that mattered, he says, I have to have a black guy. And it's funny because you sit there, and the Boston Globe used to pressure the radio station that I worked for and say, "Oh, they don't have any black guys." But even though we did, even though we had Michael Holler, we had Larry Johnson, the other station had no black guys at all. But that was okay because they didn't have any conservatives, outspoken conservatives. So they targeted us. They said we didn't have enough black guys, or they weren't in prime time, or they weren't in drive time. Look at all the white guys. The other station was all white guys. All white guys. But that was okay because they didn't have any conservatives, and so they weren't a target for the Boston Globe. It has really nothing to do with race. It's all about politics and ideology in the end.
Oh yeah, and the irony being that, especially as the entire journalism industry has crashed and burned, there's no money in working at print newspapers anymore. So the only people who are really doing it are these incredibly privileged people. You look at people like Taylor Lawrence, it's like trust fund kids who are doing it as activists. The only people who are going to work at these places are absolutely coming from incredibly privileged backgrounds, because nobody else can possibly afford to do it at the salaries that they pay.
Also, they're not real newspaper. They're not businesses anymore. They're just vanity projects for billionaires. I mean, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Atlantic Magazine. They're owned by rich people who are losing money, but they have a lot of money. So like Jeff Bezos lost $100 million on the Washington Post last year, paying people like Taylor Lorenz. He doesn't care. He's got whatever it is, 300 billion. So he just buys the paper for the influence. And, it becomes this ideological rag that has really, no credibility as a journalistic entity. Same with the New York Times. Same with, of course, the Boston Globe is a national joke. It's owned by John Henry. He bought it as a plaything for his trophy wife. And then she just does, handles her personal grievances and blows kisses to her friends in the newspaper. They, it helps them get real estate deals done because they'll kiss the ass of the mayor or local representatives. And then those mayors or representatives will do their bidding when they're trying to do a big real estate project in the Fenway. So it's not a newspaper. And people who work there aren't journalists. They're just activists working for this very wealthy liberal woman. And it's her little toy.
Well, in not just activists, but very mobile activists. These people have motivated. Who's the lady who went after you guys? The editorial
Shirley Leung.
Shirley Leung. She's calling sponsors, intimidating sponsors. Not only is that very effing unethical and unheard of in journalism that you would do that, but it may be even illegal to be threatening. De facto threatening sponsors. Like, why would you advertise with Kirk?
I mean that's the height of hypocrisy. It's the definition of unethical. She's just an unethical woman. She's just an immoral person who is pretending to be a journalist, but she's really an activist. She's really an ideologue, and she was literally pretending to be a journalist, harassing advertisers of her competition. Yes. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that'd be unheard of. That would never happen. But that's how far the Boston Globe has fallen. That it's become, that kind of outfit. It's just an activist organization with far left political agenda that doesn't care about journalism at all, ever. That's just not what they do. Shirley Leung's not a journalist. That's a joke. She's a terrible writer. Nobody reads her, but she can pursue her far left ideology and all her racial grievance. Everything's divided along racial lines. That's all she cares about. And she can pretend, maybe it says on her business card that she's a reporter, but everyone knows she's not. The idea that she's an actual reporter with some kind of standard is comical. She's just a really unethical, really bad person.
Yes, she worked with the then city councilor Wu. When I was at the Herald, and the Democrats had thrown a time for themselves and gotten Chinese food with taxpayer money. So we actually put pictures of the Chinese food on the front page of the Herald. We found out what they ordered. Right. And we had to essentially apologize because Shirley and Wu and others came after the Herald. And
because the Chinese food box was a dangerous trope. Right,
dangerous trope. Of course, it was literally about Chinese food. We were allowed to use it. And once you give in, and then the thing that killed me, and thankfully I didn't last too much longer after that, was when our reporters started taking selfies with Liz Warren's dog. And I thought, that's freaking it for me, man. This is over. So that's the heartbreaking thing is, and there are guys who are still there. Howie never goes in the building, but Howie Carr still exists. And Dwinell, people don't know these names, but anyway, there are a couple of the old timers who would have been unheard of. Even for me, if Jules Crittenden had seen that I had a selfie with Liz Warren's dog, I think that he would have beat the shit out of me, to be honest, and rightfully.
Well, I always say, those things that you see, you hear sometimes that your kids or grandkids, you got young kids, they'll never believe they'll never believe that you had a phone in your house with a cord on it. You had to stand there. You didn't have a cell phone. They'll never believe, like when I was a kid, we had no air conditioning. Like kids, they could never believe that. Or you had 3 channels or 4 channels and no remote, and you had to turn the channels and you had to watch. People will never believe that the Boston Globe was once a respected newspaper. I mean, generations to come, they're going to say, what? First of all, they won't even know it's a newspaper because people don't see it, but they'll just think of it as this crazy left-wing, media, like every other one, like Salon or Mother Jones or whatever. That's all it is. It's just a left-wing website run by an ideologue, a very wealthy, a trophy wife, the woman that married a billionaire because he's a billionaire, and she has some fun with it. It's her little toy, but no one's going to believe that the Globe used to actually do journalism. Like that the thought that the Globe does any journalism is kind of a joke at this point.
Do you think have John Henry's nightmares about having the street named Yawkey, have they subsided, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I think he still tosses and turns.
That was pre-George Floyd. That was when we were less insane. We were doing things like that. Freaking crap.
I think that all the time. I jog and I walk by the Yawkey. It's a children's museum, signed like Yawkey Charities. Yawkey's the most charitable guy in the history of Boston. Done more for charity, built more buildings, supported more hospitals. But John Henry decided, because he didn't sign Jackie Robinson, which was a disgraceful chapter, but I don't think, I think the thing that he did, the real unforgivable, he hired a GM and Pinky Higgins, who was a virulent racist. And, that's unforgivable. But at the same time, he has donated hundreds of millions, maybe it's $1 billion at this point, probably $500 million, to the best causes, built hospitals, wings of hospitals for cancer patients. And John Henry wants us to believe seeing his name gives him nightmares. Seeing the name Yawkey gives him nightmares. Well, John Henry, on his best day, hasn't done nearly as much for charity for kids with cancer that the Yawkey Foundation. I mean, Yawkey was dead and gone, but the Yawkey Foundation, that name, has done more good in the city than John Henry or Linda Pizzuti could ever do.
But it
gives him nightmares.
It's disappointing that that this country it seems like it's over, but that we're ending in such a stupid way. Which brings me to a piece of audio that Alice and I stumbled onto. Well, it was part of our podcast that we recorded yesterday with Scott Brown, and I don't know if I had heard this or if I had imagined it, but it's pretty revealing. When you got sworn in as senator, was he like hair-sniffing Gail or handsy with Gail, or did I imagine it?
Yeah. I told him I'd kick the shit up. I told him to stop.
So that was Scott Brown. Joe Biden made a pass at Gail Huff. Not surprisingly, I'm sure that if the daughters were there, that there's stories to tell there too. But can we once and for all just admit that this guy is a freaking dirtbag? Joe Biden's he's an a-hole. He's an immoral piece of what. He just is.
Well, you know what the biggest lie in American political history, you think of what's the biggest lie, and you think, I did not have sex with that woman, or no new taxes, read my lips. Those are things to be, or you think, Barack Obama, I would say the most effective lie was saying you can keep your doctor if you like your plan. He knew that was a lie. He said it anyway as an attempt to pass Obamacare. He succeeded. So it was a very effective lie, but it was a bold-faced lie. I'd put those two. But the biggest lie ever told was Joe Biden is a decent, compassionate, honorable man.
Yep.
That's the biggest lie. Joe Biden is a piece of garbage from a garbage family, and he always has been. That's the thing. That's why that's what the media in this country, in Washington, can do. They can propagate a lie for decades, which ends up getting the guy elected president. And I guess the whole country knows by now at this point, except Mike Barnicle, who said the other day, Joe Biden doesn't get enough credit for being a decent person.
He's not.
That was after Claire McCaskill said he's guilty of one thing: loving his son. So obviously these are just liars and plagiarists. But when you think about it, That's how he got to where he's going, because the media sold people on this lie that he's just a regular guy, decent, compassionate family man. He's anything but that. He's just a really, really bad guy. He's not only a bad guy, Tom. He's a bad father, as we've seen. He took his crack-addicted son, sent him around the world to rake in the cash for his family. He's a bad grandfather. We know that because he doesn't count all his grandkids until the polls got so bad that he had to do it.
Right.
And plus, I don't know, when you're showering with your daughter, I think it's brings you down a notch or two. But really bad guy. I mean, really bad person. When you think about it, he's looking at his watch when the bodies come home from Afghanistan. 13 warriors get blown up because of his negligence, because he got these kids killed.
Yes.
And he didn't have the dignity to meet the parents and be honest with them and apologize and take responsibility. Instead, he lied over and over again, saying his son died in combat.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that earlier this week when the mother testified in San Diego and said he went up to her and said, "I know how you feel. My son came home in a flag draped coffin." If you would lie to a Gold Star mother a day after, 24 hours after she learned her 20-year-old son, got killed, got blown up by a suicide bomber because of you, if you would lie to her, you'd lie to anybody.
Jeez.
I mean, if you would have no compunction, no reservation, you would say that kind of lie to a grieving Gold Star mother. What wouldn't you do?
Jesus.
I mean, what at what point is there a moral compass, a moral line in your heart, in your mind, where you say, I can't go there? I'm not kidding. He has to be the worst person.
Yes.
The worst human being to ever occupy the Oval Office.
Yeah. And even pointing out that the Border Patrol, saying that they were strapping people, whipping Haitians, and F you, how dare you destroy those guys' freaking lives because you can't handle a border? God, he has
zero compassion, zero decency in his heart. He does not care about anybody else. I mean, from Tara Reid to the Gold Star mothers, I mean, to the people of East Palestine, he doesn't have a heart for anybody. I mean, he is out to make money and gain power. I mean, that's what he is. He is the worst kind of politician, the worst kind of leader. He's a narcissist. That's why he's running again. I mean, if he weren't such a narcissist, he would realize that he's cognitively shot and he's unfit for office, and he would step aside and let Kamala take over or Gavin Newsom. But he's just such a narcissist that he thinks. Someone once said this of Bill Clinton. It's kind of the definition of narcissism. Bill Clinton thinks when he dies, the world ends. We're all just here, part of it. That's what Joe Biden thinks. That he is more important than the country. So he'll run again, even though he's completely unfit for the job. And he doesn't care if he gets, senile, dementia while in office, falls down, whatever, dies. He doesn't care. It's about him, not about this country.
By the way, add bad dog owner to the list.
Good one. That's an excellent one. That's how you know, actually, those aren't dogs. Those are props. They were never really his dogs. They were just there as part of the show. Look at me. I got a German Shepherd. Remember he said,
we love your dog, sir. Remember that, Gerry?
When he was walking naked in the shower and he grabbed his dog's tail. What dog owner grabs their tail? Nobody does that. You grab a dog, you don't even know anything about dogs, let alone own them. If you think it's appropriate to grab their tail while you're naked in the shower, I guess it gave his daughter a break, get him out of the shower. But.
Well, the props are mauling the staff is the problem now. I think
what kind of dog? They attacked 10 Secret Service agents. What kind of dog do you keep around to the 10th person it bites? 10th.
Yeah.
Usually it bites 2 or 3. You say, we got to get rid of this dog.
Well, it goes back to the narcissism. Training. Everybody else has to get rid of their dog when it starts biting people, but not the Bidens because they're too important. They just have dogs that bite people, and it doesn't matter.
Everyone just pretends it's normal. They pretends they're just they're just a normal family. That's the one thing that drives me insane when I hear people in the media say, "Oh, he's a good man, a good family man. Just loved his family."
Yeah.
He's anything but that. I mean, he's a terrible, terrible family man, as we can see, but because he's got a terrible family.
how many of those stories that start with Joey do you think are true, Gerry? By the way, like
there's all those tells, a lot of tells. Here's how you know he's lying when he says it's the truth. I'm serious. If he says,
"Yep, that's right,
no joke," if he says no joke, he's about to lie, or he just lied. If he says, if he mentions his mother or father, he's about to lie. Like my father, one of my favorite lies is to him and his father when he was a kid, 1959, saw two guys kissing, and his father said, "Joey, that's just love. They just love each other, Joey." So in 1960, a 50-year-old guy in Pennsylvania, a steel, whatever he calls him, a miner. He was a car salesman, but he lies and says he was a miner. Saw two guys kissing and said, "They just love each. That's love, Joey." So they supported that.
He'd be a statistical anomaly, that's for sure, if that story were
Tucker
true.
Carlson says there was a better chance that Joe Biden threw a bottle at them.
So,
young Joe, even today, if Joe Biden saw that, he'd say, "Look at those freaks. Get a room," or something. I mean, the idea that he was in favor of gay marriage when he was in high school is just so silly.
So who are you liking for the Republican nomination now? So you had been more leaning towards DeSantis, I know, but
I was a big DeSantis guy. I'm not giving up. I'm going to wait for the debate. It's really disappointing to me because I don't buy into this, that how DeSantis screwed everything up. Give me one example of what he screwed up. Here's what he did. He was a threat to Trump. And by the way, a threat to the media. They hate him too. So he kind of got ganged up on him.
Yes.
The media hates, which knows he's a threat to their guy Biden, and Trump, which he's considered him a threat. So Trump spent $20 million, spent more attacking DeSantis than he did supporting the candidates in the last election. And then the media, of course, they hate him because he took on Disney and he took on the radical LGBTQ mob in Florida. So they hate him. So he got just a nonstop barrage of negative press, and it hurt. But I'm telling you, Trump could end up in prison.
Yeah,
that's why there's so many people in this race, because they all sit there with Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Mike Pence. They say, well, obviously Trump's running away with it, but he could end up in prison. I can't come up with a way that Trump doesn't either end up in prison or the White House. I mean, those are the only two things.
I think you're right.
So if he doesn't, well, obviously he's heading to the nomination. So he gets a nomination. If he doesn't beat Biden or Gavin Newsom, they put him in prison. If he does beat them, he pardons himself and he stays in the White House, or he returns to the White House. I can't see how he loses and stays out of prison.
No way. He's going to win from prison.
They're never going to stop.
Yeah, the more you see the polling, it seems to me that that's mostly what the DeSantis campaign is guilty of, for all the Twitter brouhaha over how incompetent the campaign's been. It seems mostly like why he's losing is because Trump keeps getting indicted.
Yes.
Which is not really his
Every
fault.
time Trump gets indicted, but I hate this idea, like Trump says, "Oh, he's got no personality. Oh, he's got no charisma." You know what? I don't care. I don't want that. You know what is? I don't want charisma right now. I want things to get. First of all, I want to stop Biden, and secondly, I want to get things done. I want to fire people. I want the day one. I want Chris Wray fired. I want Merrick Garland indicted. I want Fauci in prison.
Yes.
The guy who seems like he could actually do things and not just say them is DeSantis. He's done it in Florida. He did it yesterday. Fired another Soros prosecutor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's what I would like to see at a federal level. I want to see him do and maybe he'll do it in 2028. But I'm not giving up on him. I like Ramaswamy. He's, obviously he's kind of a surrogate for Trump and doing Trump's bidding, but a lot of energy, smart as hell, and it's refreshing to hear a guy, who's can put a sentence together in this day and age. It's he's a good addition. He brings a lot of energy to the whole scene. So we'll see what happens in 2 weeks at that debate. I think Trump should be there, but
I think he will be there. But we talked to Michael Graham. He thinks he's going to be there just because he needs money, because he's spending so much on lawyer fees, and he can.
Don't you think you could counter program with a big rally somewhere?
Yeah, I would think so, but who knows? Maybe the Fox platform will do something. I would think so. I would think that
second debate's Fox Business.
Yeah.
So,
I would think Trump would just want to not miss the attention. Although he last time around in 2016 he started bailing on debates too. So maybe
it's hard to, when you got 17 guys on stage. I just want him there to see him go at Christie, and Christie will go at him and just destroy Mike Pence.
What does Christie say it to my face? Calling him
Mike
fat.
Pence is the most pathetic presidential candidate I think I've ever seen. That ad where he's pretending to pump gas, and no one supports him. Everyone, even if you hate Trump, who likes Mike Pence? He's just so uninspiring, and Trump will just go at him and just destroy him. Christie, Trump would be interesting. Hopefully they'll be near each other, and hopefully the moderators will let them fight.
Yeah.
If Trump shows
what's
up.
Christie going to do when Trump calls him a fat bastard? And he's going to. What's Christie going to do? Fight him? Trump can win that fight. Christie does not have a good center of gravity.
No. I love that. Like Christie saying, "Just say it to my face." And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's going to do that.
Yeah, get ready for it.
He doesn't have a big problem insulting people to their face.
They're going to just overshadow everyone else. That North Dakota guy, the Florida, the Miami mayor, all those people are going to be up there. Hell, Perry Johnson's going to be on stage.
Who's that?
He's this rogue candidate. He's a businessman. He's got this plan, 2%. He wants to cut 2% of the budget. He's looks like a car, like a used car salesman. He's going to be on stage. Perry Johnson qualified. So it's going to be hard to focus on these two heavyweights, these two Godzilla and King Kong types with Christie and Trump. But it'd be fun. It'd be good TV.
The Republican Party needs to learn something from the Democratic Party, because they have people polling at like 20%. And they're just like, nope, we're not holding a debate. Not happening. We're not having it.
It's a good point. Alice, think of that. If Trump sits this one out, he can't attack Biden for wimping out on debates. He can't. He loses that card. Biden's obviously hiding. He's a coward. He won't debate RFK. I mean, I understand why he couldn't debate RFK. He's not smart enough. He's not quick enough. He's not articulate enough. I mean, he can't debate anybody at this point. I mean, he was terrible 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine him picture if Vivek against Biden in a debate, or DeSantis against Biden in a debate. Anybody. He can't debate anybody, even if he has Chris Wallace there as his, right-hand man, his wingman. Biden couldn't debate, you or me or your kids. Your youngest he couldn't do it. He's incapable.
Yeah.
Even if the media's there to help him.
Do you think he even gets that far? Do you think he's the nominee?
No, I don't. I look at him. You saw him out there at the Grand Canyon wandering aimlessly, touching the weather lady's breasts.
That's right. I
don't know if you picked up on this. We talked about it today. I think Jesse Waters brought it to my attention, but he said when she was grilling him on climate change and all that, it's funny because we spent $368 billion on a climate change facility. Everyone's like, what? We spent $368 billion on a climate change facility. You can get the sound. He said it to the Weather Channel lady. I'm like, what? Most normal. That was a normal president or politician. Everyone would be asking to explain. What are you talking about? Where is this place? It must be really nice. $368 billion must be really nice. Where is it? Like in the desert? Where? But he just says things, and people say, "Well, his mind is shot. They can't hold him to it." So
yeah,
you're telling me 2 years, a year and a half from now, he's going to be He's going to be worse. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 84, 85, 86.
Yeah, I
mean, there are some sharp 85-year-olds. He's not going to be one of them. Dianne Feinstein is sharper than he is at this point.
No, and his mouth is agape now more than it ever has been. So when he made the breast grab for the lady under the ruse of saying there's a fly on her chest, he looked confused then. Even when he was feeling Longoria, where he got a wholesome grope in,
yeah.
He still looked fairly lost. So he is all done. Gerry Callahan, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody should be listening to Gerry Callahan, the Gerry Callahan Show. Follow Gerry Callahan Show on Twitter at The Callahan Show, and follow Gerry Callahan. Gerry, thanks so much.
Thank you, Shattuck. Thanks, Alice. Have a good wherever you're going. Where are you going on your vacation? Anywhere good?
Vermont.
Yep.
Vermont.
So Bernie
That's
Sanders
good.
in the shadows of his mansions.
He'll fit in up there, man. Good. You get the Vermont look going. You could be a hippie.
That's
you
right.
Could be.
I've turned, Jerry. I'm going full Ben and Jerry's trans flavors.
I noticed the Ben and Jerry's pop, but good. That's a good career move. As I tell young people, they want to get in this business and survive. Go woke, man. Go liberal, because there's no room for independent thought. Just get in line. That's how to do it.
No kidding. Thanks, man.
I'd see you guys.